There were three phases to the Battle of Britain. In the first, the Germans bombed a wide range of targets and suffered heavy losses. In the second, they concentrated on bombing airfields, a policy which, had it been maintained, might have succeeded. But on the 7th of September, the Luftwaffe switched tactics and began to bomb British cities.
When this Coventry
was at risk because Coventry had a great deal of industry, and it was industry of military importance. That is, engine factories, aircraft factories and armaments factories.
Hitler postponed the invasion of Britain indefinitely, but bombing raids continued, and by November 1940, Coventry had suffered several attacks.
But they had got mentally adjusted to the fact that, all right, stick of bombs here and there, it doesn't hurt me. Those people down the street, I'm ever so sorry, he says, but, you know, and that's how the attitude was of, we're going to win anyway. There was no question about us going to win. We're going to win.
On the 14th of November 1940, as German bombers began taking off from French airfields, Eddie Bell set out to go to the pictures.
We went to see Mickey Rooney and Judy Garland and Strike Up the Band. So we walked from where we lived over to the Radford Road to the Savoy. Lovely picture house, we're in there, quite a few in there, but half full, and we sat down and the film started, and we can hear a bit of a rumpus going on outside, but because of the music and the noise, it didn't inflict itself.
Well, I was with mother and father at home. We were about on the west side of Coventry, and the sirens went at about 7:10, and we thought what's going to happen next, and then we heard the roar of the engines coming across, and then we heard the first bombs coming down.
About 9 o'clock, the manager came out, he said, I'm ever so sorry about this, he says, there's a bombing raid on, he says, and it looks quite serious, so if anybody wants to leave, they can do so. But if anybody wants to stop, you've already paid your money, you can stop and see it. I'll put the last reel on, but he says, I'm going home, so please yourselves what you do. So we stayed and saw the rest of the film.
We stood on the doorstep at some point watching, and I almost cried, saying, oh, the city is gone, and we said, well, what can we do about it? And the situation was really grim. It went on and on, wave after wave.
During this big attack, Coventry, our target, well, my target was, but the target assigned to me was a propeller factory. We were already saying at the time that it made no sense at all. On the contrary, it was a very bad idea for us to attack residential areas because it would only antagonise the population. And it was, of course, the whole city that suffered because there was such a concentration of industries there.
So when we come out into the Radford Road, the cathedral spire was lit up with the flames, 40 feet up in the air, you know.
And they tried to put the flames out, but with the sand and such like, but it got such a hold, and then we ran out of water.
The water hydrants had been destroyed, and the canal was too far from the fires to be of any use. Tommy Dunn, an aircraft mechanic from Coventry, heard that his city was burning down and rushed home to check on his family.
It was night time when I got to Coventry. It was pitch black, there was no lights, anything. I got out of train, started walking up Park Road, not far from where I lived, and I could see all the buildings all gaunt and all smashed and all that, you know. I thought, oh, good God.
So we decided, right, better get home and see how everybody is. So we made our way up through, and when we were doing, we had to dive into people's gardens and front doors, because there were splinters of, what do you call it, shrapnel coming down. And you could hear it rattling along the roof, you know, like that, you know. Oh, it was dust and thick smoke coming in. So when we made our way through it, we realised that the whole of the street had been destroyed. You know, all the roofs were off and the windows all blown out. And there was we heard somebody calling for help, and I ran up the stairs, and I managed to get this old dear out of her bed and down the stairs, and to shuffle her down on her bottom, a step by step to get her down.
Anyway, I got to the top of where I lived, top of Little Park Street, and a voice said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going down there." He said, "You're not." I said, "I am." He shone his torch on me. He said, "Oh," he said, "Air Force, eh?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "He was a policeman." And I said, "My parents live down there." He said, "Well, there is some people alive down there." He said, "But if you go down, keep in the middle of the road and be careful where you go." So anyway, I kept in the middle of the road and went down, got to where I lived, and I seen a chink of light in the door. And I thought, well, somebody's home, you know. When I walked in, it was my dad sitting there with a tin helmet on his head and a bottle of beer. And I said to him, "Are you all right, Daddy?" "Hello, son." He said, "How are you?" I said, "All right." I said, "Is the family all right?" "Yeah," he said, "they're all down the shelters." I said, "Why ain't you down the shelters with them?" He said, "No," he said, "they never got me in the 14-18 war, they won't get me now."
The people of Coventry emerged from their shelters into an unrecognisable city.
In the morning it was devastation. You couldn't even get into the city really. Rubble and bomb craters and people just wandering around because there's so many people who was homeless.
When we went into the town, there were certain places you couldn't go in because the roads were blocked up and they hadn't cleared them. The windows had all been blown out, and the fronts had been blown off the houses, and there was people's treasured possessions lying to the wind, you know. The place was untenable. You couldn't live in a place. There were some places that had been bombed, and some hadn't. Like, you maybe got a shop there, blown to bits, one next door to it. Nothing happened to it, you see.
People had lost everything, even their ration books.
So they discontinued rationing. People had heard that you could go into any shop and get anything, you see, and news travelled fast, unfortunately, out in the districts, and they came in.
And there were blokes in Burton's windows trying jackets on, you know, and, you know, there was no place to buy food. The shops didn't open. They were just blown open, sort of thing, and if there was anything there, you sort of commandeered it, you know.
Chaos is really the word to put it, because no other city had been bombed as such as this.
3/4 of Coventry's 75,000 buildings were damaged. 563 people died, 400 of them so badly burned that they couldn't be identified. War had come to the high streets of Britain and Germany.